Right now, somewhere out there, something is looking at your face and building a file on it. Not your dog, not a person. Something that doesn't even have a brain the size of a grain of rice. We assume recognizing a face takes intelligence. A brain like ours? Wired for that one specific job. That's not it. Insects, fish, and sheep are quietly memorizing faces right now, sorting friend from stranger, safe from threat, without anything we'd call a mind. Which means the thing we think makes us special might be the cheapest trick nature ever built. And once you see how far down the list of brains it goes, you start looking at every animal around you a little differently. So, let's start small. Really small. In a nest of paper wasps, every face is different, splotches of yellow and black, arranged almost at random across the head and body. No two patterns alike, the way no two human faces are quite alike. That's not decoration. Each wasp reads those patterns the way you read an expression across a room. A biologist named Elizabeth Tibbets spent years testing this. She painted over the markings on individual wasps, swapping patterns between them like masks. The colony didn't treat it as a costume. Wasps that used to know their neighbors suddenly didn't. Fights broke out that hadn't happened in weeks. Rank got renegotiated from scratch. A stable little society, unraveled by repainting a few faces. And this insect is running that whole recognition system on a brain smaller than a grain of rice. There isn't a spare region in there for anything we'd call a face. There's barely room for the basics. It does it anyway. If an insect can do it, you'd think a fish couldn't. Fish don't strike us as face people, but researchers held up photographs of human faces to archerfish, the ones that spit jets of water to knock insects out of overhanging leaves. They trained each fish to spit at one specific face, out of a lineup of dozens of strangers. Then they changed the lighting, they changed the angle, they rotated the head. The fish kept picking the right one anyway, generalizing a face it had only ever seen underwater. Looking up, through the surface of the water, no neocortex. No mammal hardware built for this. Just a brain evolved to track a moving bug, quietly repurposed to sort strangers from a face it had memorized. It gets stranger before it gets stranger still. Pigeons, trained in a lab, can hold dozens of individual human faces in memory at once, sorting them correctly months after the training ended. The same pigeons can tell a Monet from a Picasso, not because they understand art, because a face, a brushstroke, a pattern. It's all the same problem to a brain built for telling one thing apart from another. Then there's the one that should be completely impossible. Sheep. At a lab in Cambridge, researchers trained sheep to walk toward a screen and pick a familiar face out of a lineup of total strangers, not just their handlers, celebrities they'd never met. Sheep recognized Barack Obama, they recognized Emma Watson, even from an unfamiliar angle, even weeks later, with no reward in between. An animal we've spent 10,000 years assuming exists mainly to be sheared and eaten, quietly filing away the faces of people it had seen for 30 seconds on a screen. Now scale the memory up, and the story turns darker. Crows don't just recognize faces. They keep score. In Seattle, researchers wearing a single rubber caveman mask trapped a handful of wild crows just to ban them. One encounter. Then they let them go. Years later, crows across that entire neighborhood still mobbed anyone wearing that same mask on sight, screaming, diving, calling in reinforcements from 3 streets over, including crows that hadn't even hatched when the original trapping happened. The memory wasn't only carried by the birds that lived through it. It was taught, passed down, mapped onto a face that had never done anything to the next generation directly. Some of the original crows held the grudge for over a decade and never once relaxed around that mask. Horses take it further still. Show a horse a photograph of someone it knows well, then play a voice through a speaker that doesn't match the face. The horse gets visibly confused. It stares longer. It checks the picture, then the speaker, then the picture again, the way you double-check something that didn't add up. Horses can hold a face in memory for years and cross-reference it later against a voice, a context, a situation that has nothing to do with smell or touch, the 2 senses we'd expect a horse to trust first. Just the shape of a face on a flat, silent, 2-dimensional piece of paper. Something no horse ever evolved to look at. And elephants carry it further than any of them. Herds that lost family members to poachers years earlier react with fear specifically to the smell of one group's clothing, and specifically to the sound of that group's language, spoken through a hidden speaker. The Maasai, a group historically associated with spearing elephants in defense of cattle. Meanwhile, Same herds show far less alarm at the clothing and voices of other people living in that same stretch of savanna, people who never posed that threat. That isn't a generalized fear of humans. That's a face, a voice, a group, and a specific danger filed together and carried for decades, passed down through a matriarch to calves who were never there. A grandmother elephant who watched her sister die can hand that fear to a calf born 20 years later, who will flinch at a voice it has never once heard cause harm. So here's what should actually bother you. None of these animals needed intelligence. Not in the way we usually mean that word. A wasp isn't smart. A sheep isn't smart. Nobody is arguing for that. What they have is a shortcut, a narrow piece of biological hardware built and rebuilt across millions of years for exactly one job: sort the individuals around you into safe, dangerous, known, unknown, because getting that sorting wrong gets you killed, or stung, or demoted, or speared, depending on which animal you happen to be. Face recognition was never a sign of a great mind. It's the entry price of living around other individuals at all. We happen to run the exact same trick on dedicated hardware of our own. A patch of tissue called the fusiform face area, tucked into the underside of the brain. It's so specialized that damage to that one small patch can leave someone able to see perfectly, read a newspaper, recognize a chair, and still be completely unable to recognize their own mother's face. We didn't invent facial recognition. We just built an unusually expensive version of something a wasp does for free, with less brain than a full stop at the end of this sentence. Which changes the actual question here. It's not why can these animals recognize faces. It's why do we ever assume, for a second, that they couldn't go back to that bird on the railing, that horse standing in the field, that wasp working the eaves of your roof. Something out there might already have you filed, known, remembered, in whatever way a wasp or a sheep or a crow is capable of remembering. Not because anything out there loves you, because forgetting a face has always, for every social animal on Earth, been the more expensive mistake. So next time something looks at you a beat too long, ask yourself, has it seen you before? Has it decided something about you already? Tell me the strangest animal you think might actually remember your face. Put it in the comments. Also, there's a single paper wasp hidden somewhere in this video that was never part of Tibbitz's original experiment. If you catch it, drop the timestamp below. One random person who gets it right, I'll announce the winner in the next video. And every study I mentioned today, the wasps, the archerfish, the pigeons, the sheep, the crows, the horses, the elephants, all of it is linked in the description if you want to go deeper. Thanks for watching. Your feedback means a lot. Please share your opinion in the comments.